We are about to start the first day of questioning of the undercover police officer HN118, who's the cover name SImon Wellings, to initially infiltrate Globalise Resistance before going on to spy on the Dissent network and the wider anarchist, autonomist, anti-authoritarian, non-hierarchical movement. I'm joined by Ben.
Hello, good morning.
From Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance. What are you hoping to hear today from SImon Wellings?
For me, it's all going to be about the beer gate.
Okay.
This is going to be the the big thing. This is the rent book of SImon Wellings. This is the whole expenses scandal. We don't actually know whether he claimed for the beer. All we know is that he said to his handlers, or at some point, that he was drinking 100 pints a month.
Lightweight.
Not excluding something, which I can't remember.
No, not including other alcoholic drinks.
Not including other alcoholic drinks.
Yeah. For those of my generation, it's a William Hague type confession.
It's a lot. Have you seen the photos? He did look a bit ruddy, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who has in my time drunk 100 pints a month, I was looking very ruddy at the time as well. I don't think it's that outlandish. Only 3 pints a night.
Well, it has been pointed out that in terms of being with his targets during that early period, it would have been, one night a week or a couple of nights a week at most. So if he was drinking that much, he was doing it in his own time. Or he was saying he was drinking that much, and there's a whole bunch of receipts for claims.
I mean, we only have 2 days of questioning of SImon Wellings, which is remarkable. Really? Only 2 days, remarkably short. This is because, he didn't have a sexual relationship. So it would appear that undercover officers who appear at the inquiry who didn't have sexual relationships are viewed as less important, or their deployments were more unremarkable. But there is quite a lot for him to be questioned about. As we've heard all last week, the witnesses who appeared who had been spied on by him were all from the Globalise Resistance movement, which kind of was just the early part of his deployment. The second half of his deployment, he was after he got exposed by Globalise Resistance, though they didn't do it so publicly, he was able to spy on the Dissent movement. There has been a statement put in by Dissent, former members of Dissent.
And lots of different groups.
Yes.
Who learned for the first time that he was reporting on them. And it's like, who?
Yeah, quite. I mean, he managed to cast himself as a grey man, someone that people don't really remember. He was at a lot of larger events, it would appear, reporting from across the room, across the field, not necessarily embroiling himself in any personal relationships of any sort.
And yet he submitted, 4,000 reports?
4,000 reports.
I mean, there aren't 4,000 big events or public meetings to go to and report on that. He may have turned up at some big public meetings or big protests, and as anyone could. But in terms of a covert presence.
I mean, it's interesting that this is obviously a time period of two things which kind of were unique for it. You have the growth of email lists, which allowed him to essentially just from his bedroom go online, look what people were saying on email lists, but also the cost of printing leaflets had reduced significantly. So you had a very large number of leaflets being produced by lots of different groups. And we've seen from a lot of the undercover officers that a lot of the reports that get written up under their name are just them submitting leaflets. And each leaflet is a report. Each email may be a report. So you can see how he could get to the point where he's delivered 4,000 of them. The inquiry has only had sight of 1,000 of these reports. And through disclosure, I know of several hundred that have been released to co-participants, but certainly not the full amount.
Very late as well, which was a lot of the kind of panic last week was getting to see this stuff and put in the questions and react to the fact that he appeared to be reporting on groups that we weren't aware he'd been targeted at or been involved with at all. We should say, we're talking about the big things that are going to be coming up this week. It's going to be the MT thing as well.
Yes, I mean, that's what I was just going to come on to. I mean, the most significant of the of his reporting is this completely fabricated, or I'm saying completely bad jacketed. There was a spurious conversation in a pub where a white man in his 40s with some sort of background in amateur dramatics kind of suggested doing some sort of street theatre, which would involve wearing a fake suicide vest and supposedly embarrassing Ariel Sharon, the Prime Minister of Israel at the time. I think we all agree it would have actually resulted in him getting himself shot. This is reported by SImon Wellings as being the plot of a young Arab man who he names as being someone who actually isn't an Arab, someone of Asian descent, who has peripheral involvement in Globalise Resistance. We heard MT, we heard from him last week giving evidence, so it wasn't broadcast, so people may have missed out on it, which I think was absolutely compelling evidence that he was, in fact, in no way involved in any shape or form with this plot. I think this is going to be one of the most significant elements of the questioning.
Definitely.
When you combine that with the wide range of groups that he spied upon, the number of questions that he'd be asked him about MT, about his own expenses fiddling, which we know is like a really big theme throughout the inquiry now, 2 days clearly isn't enough.
No, not at all. We should say on the MT front, so this person who's anonymous, using the cipher MT, he first learned of the reporting because in tranche 2, his name was released unredacted by the inquiry. It appears on the inquiry website, and he contacted the inquiry or through a lawyer or whatever, and learnt of the claims that were made against him, and then became. He's not a co-participant, is he? Or is a
I don't believe he's
witness.
Yeah, just civilian witness. I would say if you are a civilian witness during a particular tranche of the inquiry, you do get disclosure. It's the only way to get disclosure without being a co-participant.
So it's worth pointing out this has happened before. This happened with MT, and in a very significant way. The inquiry is publishing people's names without redactions and without informing them. That is absolutely fact. So if you were involved, even peripherally, as MT was, in any of the groups which SImon Wellings and indeed Rob Harrison, coming up next week, were involved in, there's a reasonable chance that you were reported on. And if the inquiry deem you to have any kind of public profile, i.e. if you Google yourself and you're there, then they will stick your name, very good chance they'll stick your name unredacted in the evidence bundle and eventually for publication.
It is very, very highly likely that there will be people, some of whom I know, who will be named today who are not expecting to be named. I have been unable to tell them this fact because I'm bound by the reporting restriction orders. Something in the past I may have been cavalier about, but I can assure you would never be cavalier about anymore. This will become a shock to many people. I think it's likely to happen today. I mean, please complain to the inquiry about it. If you have any issue with it,
talk to lawyers, think about a class action, data protection stuff. Don't let this happen. Like if the inquiry get enough complaints about it now, then maybe it won't happen to people in tranche 4 because it's just not on.
And it's also the case that, I mean, some people who are being named have even applied to be co-participants and not been granted, which, I mean, is an insane situation. It's certainly the case for groups. I mean, we look at like Dissent. Dissent applied to be a co-participant as a group and was denied. And we're now seeing like huge swathes of information of reporting on them by SImon Wellings, who claims to have, immense levels of penetration into the group, something which those of us who were in the group at the time don't really recognize at all.
And bearing in mind a lot of the reporting from Harrison, for example, is the ISM and groups involved in
the international solidarity movement
and groups involved in the Palestinian cause. And there's potentially a real risk of further harassment and repression by having your name associated with what could be completely fake claims made by the undercover officers, and is very likely to be.
Very likely to be. Certainly, I mean, one of the things I think is going to come up quite a lot with SImon Wellings is his purported knowledge combined with his own lack of knowledge of the situation, kind of throwing up a whole bunch of bullshit, misinformation, and quite frankly, lies.
We're going to see this thing. I missed it, but you've got corroboration between Rob Harrison, Hastings, and SImon Wellings over the MT claim, which I hadn't really picked up on. Do you have much to comment on that? Because that's something which they're both going to get asked about this, but Harrison will have had the advantage of hearing what Wellings has to say.
I mean, essentially, Harrison reports on MT at a later date when MT attends a vigil for Lebanon in 2006, I think I want to say.
Yes, they were bombing Lebanon in 2005, I think it might be slightly earlier. Maybe it was
Yeah,
2006.
yeah.
2005, 2006.
He attended a vigil. There's a report of his appearance at the vigil, and because obviously he's now got his registry file on him because the report's by SImon Wellings. So Rob Harrison writes up essentially repeats the lie that he was behind this this fake suicide vest stunt.
That never happened.
Yeah, which never happened. I mean, it's also worth repeating the idea that, you know, just like the reports are remarkably sexed up as we go through. I mean, it starts off with a conversation in a pub. It ends up with SImon Wellings heroically getting hold of the vest and destroying it himself. I am sure that there were, as that report went further up the line, the fake part of the fake bomb vest stunt has almost certainly fell away, and you know, this became part of yet another layer of internal police justification for, if you only knew what I knew, you would understand why we need to. Terrible repressive thing insert here. Yeah,
this pattern of kind of tittle tattle picked up in pubs. If that happened now, I mean, people don't go to pubs as much now. They don't drink as much now. So what do the undercovers do to provide this this bullshit? Just people mouthing off when drunk. There's an interesting bit in Disclosure from Kate Wilson, who wrote the book Disclosure, about it's Mark Kennedy reporting on someone who's kind of very mouthy when drunk, and he reports that he just talks a load of shit, but then says, "But that's good for us." It's like, okay, so you know that what he's talking about is shit, but you're going to put it in intelligence anyway because you recognize that bullshit is exactly what your unit needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the broadcast will be starting at 10:10. The hearing will start in just a couple of minutes, so we probably should head in and take our seats in the public gallery. It will be broadcast with video. You'll be able to see what SImon Wellings, cover name SImon Wellings looks like. Obviously, he had multiple code names, 3 in fact. Groundhog Day, a ring wraith and a rivet welder, was it?
Yeah, something like that.
Very strange. Which has made actually kind of understanding which of the reports were his when we had got the disclosure quite difficult, because we were only knew that he had the second and third code names more recently.
The inquiry used to tell you who the intelligence was attributed to when they gave you the disclosure, and they stopped at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we head in?
That's it. It's going to be a good one.
All right.
Enjoy.
Thanks for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. All that kind of stuff. It makes a huge difference. You can see the link to the broadcast, which is just in the description below here. Thanks for joining. See you all during the first break. Bye for now.
Bye.